Welcome to another video for Fresh Faces, New Ideas. I'm David, and if you like the content that I make and want to support the channel, please hit the like and subscribe button, or you could follow me on Twitter at FacesIdeas, or you can listen to me at the Center Left Radio podcast, or you can find it from the centerleftradio.com. So let's get into the video. So for this video, we're going to discuss the recent kids in cages thing with the Biden administration. Now, the coverage of this is that, this is the same thing as Trump's, and that Joe Biden is basically a hypocrite because he put kids in cages. That's not true. It's not the same thing. However, it isn't really better. So what the difference in these things are there's a wide swath of differences between these things. First, these kids are not minors, or they're not like babies. So what happened under the Trump administration was a family would come over. The child would then be ripped from the parent's arms and placed separately, and the parent would basically be forced to self-deport in order to. That was just how they were doing. They were self-deporting them, and then the kid was there stuck in these facilities. Also, in these facilities, the children were taking care of each other. There's some indisputable facts here. It is indisputable that some of the kids were taking care of each other. It's indisputable that the conditions were inhumane. It is indisputable that it was designed to be cruel punishment. This is exactly how they said they wanted it to be. What is happening under the Biden administration is different. It is not better. Well, it is a little better, but it is not good, but it is different. So the difference is this year there has been a massive spike in the amount of unaccompanied minors who've crossed the border, and that's what they're dealing with. So it went from 36 last month to like 4,000 this month. So there's this huge overflow of migrants. The difference in the Biden administration approach is we're going to take them, we're going to put them in, they're going to stay here. And this facility is, it's a holding facility. It's until they get moved to the Office of Refugees Resettlement. That's where they're going. They're not going to be held here indefinitely. That's one of the big differences. The Trump administration just held them there until they, just as long as they could, and that's part of the reason we lost a whole bunch of the kids. A whole bunch of them couldn't find their parents. Most recently, we learned that the Biden administration has managed to connect over 100 of these families together. So these kids aren't tiny children. They're adolescents. Also, this facility appears to be temporary. Now, there are a lot of things that we have to take with a grain of salt. They're going to say, oh, these conditions are better, but we have no proof of that. So we won't know until we actually get some watchdogs in there to take pictures. And this is part of the problem with the Trump administration. Was what they were doing was they would hide all the evidence. Like, they wouldn't let people in. They wouldn't allow them to take pictures, or they would make it nicer, or they would just play it down. These facilities, even if they're like the best facilities and the nicest facilities, it doesn't really make it better just because you're in a nicer cage. So there's that difference. And we do actually, if they truly want to prove that this is not not the same, they just open the doors. Just let watchdog groups in. Let people who do this for a living, who make sure that these children are taken care of, let them into these facilities to prove it. And don't put ICE in charge of this. The reason you can't put ICE in charge of this is because ICE for a long time has abused its power. It did it under Obama, and Trump just basically told them to do what they wanted. And this is part of the problem with Biden. He has pushed back hard enough on this. He said, we're not doing deportations under me. And I said, screw you, yes we are. And then they ended up deporting people. They deported over 100 people to Haiti. So they're not the agency that they're made out to be. And this idea that ICE should be the ones to watch out for these kids is not the right answer. They need to have some other non-affiliated group doing this, whether it's some type of healthcare workers or some type of child services. Somebody else needs to be watching them. And this comes to the other thing. This facility is supposed to be temporary, but we also don't know that either. And there's no way to tell how temporary it's going to be until time passes. If we're a year into this, a year later, and these kids are still here, we have a huge problem because they're not supposed to be there. The whole point of this is that this is a temporary area for them to move until they move on to the proper authorities. Now, the problem with this is it's not a good answer. It just isn't. We need a better solution for dealing with these kids who are coming across. Because look, for all the people who say, oh, you should come here legally, we have the strictest rules in the world in order to get people into our country legally and become citizens. Part of what Joe Biden is going to release, I believe, next week is his immigration plan in order to author a pathway to citizenship. The argument is, oh, they're offering amnesty. But how are you going to say that we want you to come here legally and then not give these people an option to be here legally? You have to give them that option in order for them to not have to worry about this. Because these people, the data does not back up the idea that these people are overly dangerous or that they're more dangerous than the people who are currently living here. There just isn't data to back that up. So the kids in the cages, they're not, look, we don't know if they're, actually the same cages. There's a good chance that they might be because they're the similar facilities that the Trump administration used and they just got shut down. So if you really wanted to do this correctly, this was not the right step. The right step now has to be open it up to allow people in to see what's going on. You have to have open transparency. Part of the biggest problem with the Trump administration's child separation policy was that they were very closed off and they would not allow people to look at these kids. They would not give data. A whole bunch of these kids died. I think it was like 24 of them died. And so if this is the step that you're doing, because what Joe Biden is currently doing has basically been U.S. policy prior to the Trump administration. They come here, you hold them in these overflow camps, and then you move them onto Office of Refugee Settlement, and then they decide from there. And one of the ways that you can make this more efficient is by changing the refugee laws to allow people to access faster through the system, whether that's more judges, whether it's less stringent testing for it, things like that, to make it so that the flow of refugees, whether they are allowed to stay in the country or not. I'm not just saying for all the people who are going to say, oh, you just want open borders. No. If you make a faster and more efficient system, then you can decide for the people who actually have who have real refugee or real asylum cases to move through the system quicker. And if you allow that to happen, then you can find out who really needs to be here and who's not. And that will allow for more people to be less likely to cross the border illegally and more likely to actually apply through a system that they know won't take 40 years or will take like a long time. It'll allow people to flow through quicker, and it will cut down on the illegal immigration. Another way to deal with that is to change it back into a misdemeanor. It was a misdemeanor under the Obama administration, and it got changed to a felony in the Trump administration. The Biden administration has they've taken the wrong step. This is not the right way to do this. You say, the kids in cages this is not Trump. That's because there's a very big difference between this and what Donald Trump did. The Donald Trump border separation policy was cruel on purpose, and it was designed to be humiliating and cruel. The Biden administration one appears to be a stopgap for wayward kids who have just come in mass, and they're trying to figure out where they have to put them. Do they need a better place to find out where these kids should go? Absolutely. That needs to be one of the current steps that happens. They say, okay, well, we didn't expect this many kids here, so we're going to put them in this facility. But however, we know that this is a problem that could potentially crop up in the future. Here's how we're going to step out of it. So as part of his immigration plan, whenever he releases it, it should be, look, we understand the optics of this are bad. We're going to allow journalists, we're going to allow watchdog groups, we're going to allow people whose job it is to take care of these type of people, these type of kids, and these type of refugees into these facilities to see what's going on. And anybody who's in charge of these facilities who blocks them is because the other problem with this is these aren't federal facilities. They're private. They're contracted facilities. It actually costs like $700 per day per child in these facilities, which, for reference, is twice as much as Ted Cruz's kids were paying to go out to Cancun for the weekend. So, if these kids are, when these facilities pop up, which unfortunately they have, the Biden administration's next step is you have to have full transparency. You have to allow journalists in. You have to allow watchdog groups in, and if you don't, we cancel your contract and we're taking those kids and we're going to move them into whatever better facilities we can that will accommodate this. And while they're quickly processing these kids, they talk to these watchdog groups and say, well, what is the best way for us to handle this? How do we deal with this type of influx in a humane way? Because the kids in cages was not humane with the Trump administration, and it's not much better under the Biden administration, because we don't know. Just because he said that you have to keep up the whatever the healthy guidelines are, doesn't mean that these facilities are following suit with that. You have to actually allow people to look into this, and you have to enforce it. And you can't be worried about, you're being soft on illegal immigrants. These are children who are coming in by themselves, and all you're doing is trying to figure out, where do you house them until we can push them through the system. And then if your argument is, well, you can't house them here, we already know that's not a effective solution. Is the stay in Mexico policy. It was a disaster. It was worse than basically the kids in cages, because they were just stuck in these hut cities. So the overall thing is, this is not the right answer. This is not Donald Trump's answer. These things are not equivalent. Are they both good? Is it good? No, it is not good. Are there steps that have to be taken in order to make it better? Yes. Can they take these steps? Yes. Is this a story that's worth being covered and watched at? Yes. Are people who call these equivalent the same? No, this is still not equivalency. This is dealing with a mass influx of unaccompanied minors and temporarily housing it. This is what we're being told. If it turns out to be the case, that'll be a different story, and I'll do a different video on that. Versus cruel punishment in order to make sure that people did not come across the border by just being as cruel as possible to them, which didn't work anyway. So the difference in these policies are very clear. They're not cages, but they're not much better. So if you like this video, please like and subscribe. If you want to follow me on Twitter, please do. My hashtag is @FacesIdeas. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.